What would it actually take for XRP to hit $100? It's a number thrown around a lot, but a deep dive into a theory from a former developer and a new analysis from Google's AI, Gemini, reveals the absolutely staggering scale of adoption the XRP Ledger would need to achieve. We're not talking about a simple price pump. We're talking about processing over $150 billion in transactions every single day. That's the core of a hypothesis from Quincy Jones, a former Corda developer, who argued back in 2021 that XRP's value is directly tied to the value of the financial instruments on its ledger. Now, Google Gemini has put a number on that theory, and the figure is so large it forces us to ask a critical question. Is this a realistic goal or a pure fantasy? Let's break down Quincy Jones's original idea. He didn't see XRP's price as something determined by speculation alone. Instead, he famously argued that XRP acts as the liquidity that bridges assets like bonds, currencies, and equities. His core premise was simple. The more value like tokenized real-world assets, RWAs, that is issued on the XRP Ledger, XRPL, the higher XRP's price could climb. He suggested the potential was virtually limitless, ranging from $100 all the way to $1 million, depending entirely on how much value the network ends up hosting. But a theory is one thing. Real-world numbers are another. This is where Google's AI, Gemini, comes in. It built a hypothetical model to quantify Jones's idea. First, the basics. With a circulating supply of about 55 billion XRP, a price of $100 per token would mean a market capitalization of roughly $5.5 trillion. That's already a huge number, larger than most companies on Earth. Now, here's the crucial part. Gemini introduced a valuation ratio. The model assumes that for XRP's market cap to be justified by utility and not speculation, it might need to represent a fraction of the total value it helps move each year. If that ratio is, say, 10%, then the XRPL would need to facilitate a mind-blowing $55 trillion in annual transaction volume. That breaks down to over $150 billion every single day. Therefore, for XRP to reach $100 based on utility, the XRP Ledger would need to become a core pillar of the entire global financial system. It would need to process tokenized versions of everything: real estate, corporate debt, commodities, and equities on a scale that rivals or even surpasses today's largest financial infrastructures like SWIFT. This isn't just about a few banks using it for cross-border payments. This is about a fundamental reshaping of how global finance operates. Now, let's contrast this astronomical requirement with where the XRPL is today. The tokenization of real-world assets is indeed a growing trend, but the XRPL's current role is still very small. According to data from RWA.xyz, the total value of tokenized assets across all blockchains is about $30.14 billion. Of that, the XRPL holds a mere $294 million, giving it just a 1.75% market share and ranking it as the 10th largest chain for RWAs. Ripple executives, including CTO David Schwartz, have been talking up the ledger's potential in this sector, and even asset management firm Bitwise has noted that buying XRP is a way to invest in tokenization. However, there's a Grand Canyon-sized gap between today's $294 million and the trillions needed for $100 XRP. So what does this all mean? The path to a three-digit XRP isn't impossible, but it is arguably the most ambitious scenario imaginable. It hinges on the XRPL achieving near total dominance in the tokenization world, a market that is itself still in its infancy. It requires a level of institutional adoption that we are only just beginning to see the precursors of, like Ripple's strategic alliances with institutions like DBS Bank and Franklin Templeton for tokenized asset platforms. For investors, this analysis is less of a price prediction and more of a framework for understanding the sheer scale of adoption required. It shifts the focus from short-term price charts to long-term, fundamental metrics like on-chain transaction volume and the value of assets tokenized on a ledger. The $100 price tag is a fun number to think about, but the real story is whether the XRPL can start meaningfully growing its share of the tokenization pie. That's what everyone should be watching.